JC, here.
Welcome to the Rowe Show.
You like it?
I love it.
You like that it's just black and sort of a red curtain. This is Rosho 1.0.
No, I like it. I actually really do like it because, there's no reason to overthink it. Keeps it classy, you know?
Yeah, man. So here we are. We talked about what the show is, and it's largely entrepreneurs that have already made it, but are also making it and have kind of blue skies ahead.
In
And
the
we'll talk
hustle,
about
in the hustle.
JC. I want to talk to you about who you are and where you came from and everything. There's a lot of good there's a lot of backstory here. I know you sort of from another world without really knowing you exactly from that other
Uh,
world. It's
Yeah.
interesting. So just to set the stage, there was one firm that I basically grew up at, one brokerage firm, and everybody kind of went in one of two directions. They either went to the firm that JC was working at, or they went to the firm that I was working at. So everybody and the people that I know from Wall Street that I grew up with on Wall Street mostly were people that I grew up with in the neighborhood before we were even old enough to legally work. So, these are my family. And then they went and worked with JC. And so JC knows people that I'm very close with, and he's very close with them. So we have kind of the same history. I would go to your firm. I'd see all of you operating. Um, but yeah, we both come from that sort of cold calling, start out as a stockbroker and then get really interested in market analysis. And we both started businesses. I wanted to talk to you about that because you're an entrepreneur. And maybe you could give a little bit of background, tell a better story than I just did.
Haha. No, I mean, listen, I grew up in Miami, Cuban family. I'm the first born in the United States. Played baseball. Can you imagine that Cuban kid from Miami playing baseball? And so I was pretty good. I wasn't good enough to play at the University of Miami. I didn't throw hard enough, so it just turned out that the better schools were in the Northeast. So there were a lot of schools that were looking for Cuban pitchers. Can you imagine that? So, you know, I had my foot in the door and got into Fairfield University, good school. My grades, I had decent grades, but I didn't have Fairfield grades. And as you can imagine, Fairfield, Connecticut, right outside or right in the universe of hedge funds and finance. And I didn't grow up talking about the stock market at the dinner table. I mean, that a lot of my friends from college did, and a lot of my friends on Wall Street ultimately, they grew up that way, but I didn't. So, this was all an introduction for me. I was an intern at Merrill Lynch in my junior year. And again, speaking of Fairfield hooking me up, like my interview at Merrill Lynch was a joke. Like I walk in, they're like, "Oh, great, you play baseball at Fairfield?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, you know this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, I play golf with his father." I'm like, "Oh, that's terrific." They're like, "Oh, let me show you around." So they're showing me around the office, introducing me to everybody. They're like, "All right, when can you start?" I'm like, "I don't know, tomorrow, now. I don't got anything to do."
That's
Whatever.
it.
That's
Nothing
it.
else.
I mean, and I call my dad. I was like, "Dad, I think I got the job." I'm like, "You think I should take it?" He's like, "No, dummy, don't take it." He's like,
So you worked
"Yeah,
at Merrill
take it."
Lynch first.
I worked at Merrill first, but like
Oh.
they just had Fairfield interns. It was like a revolving door of Fairfield interns every summer. So like I was just next in line. That's
Mhm.
why like they're like, "All right, you're a Fairfield kid, good grades, finance major, blah blah blah. Great. How bad could you be?" It was
Mhm.
basically their mentality. So that for me it was love at first sight.
Were
So
you?
worked.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like it was my first experience living in New York City. I was 21 years old, living in Manhattan,
Hell yeah.
interning at Merrill Lynch. I was living in the
Oh,
NYU
you're the high life.
dorms, which at the time, I don't know, I think they still do this. Like all the kids from NYU leave and go back to wherever they live for the summer, and then they rent out those dorms
Mhm.
to interns, like kids that are coming in from around the country to intern in New York in fashion, in media, in finance, obviously, sports. Like New York's got a lot of things going on. So, I had friends that were living in the NYU dorms. I mean, that was the best summer of my life. It was unbelievable because everybody's on
Mhm.
the same page. Kids from Wisconsin, California, local New Yorkers. I was from Miami. There were some
Mhm.
other people I knew there from Miami that just coincidentally were doing the same thing. So it was just a blast. It was love at first sight. I was reading the Wall Street Journal, Investors Business Daily every morning. I didn't know what I was reading really.
Mhm.
I just wanted to like kind of get entrenched in the whole thing And, you know, then Josh Brown hires me out of college and, you know, at a company called West Rock that's not around anymore. They got bought out by Native American Indians. It was like this, you know, whole to do. But it, you know, I fell in love with the markets right away. And that I also learned that I needed to learn something because I was in an environment where there were people twice my age, 3 times my age that didn't know what they were doing. Like, and it was very obvious to me
Right.
at that age. And it was scary, really. I was like, I don't want to end up like this guy, this old man cold calling that doesn't know what the hell's going on in the market. That's my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to, so I got to do something. So do I get my CFA? Do I get my CMT, right? Do I want to learn fundamental analysis or do I want to learn technical analysis about the market? So it was a very easy decision at the time. Little did I know how much that would impact the rest of my life, as ultimately that's the route I took. Got my CMT, you know, kind of nailed the financial crisis. You know, it was the best year of my life career-wise for years after that. Started a blog in 2010 because all my friends had blogs. That was like, you know, the blogosphere and financial Twitter and all of that, like stemmed from, you know, the genesis of that was the financial crisis. You know, there were a few blogs before that, like 3, like Ritholtz, like Business Insider, Zero Hedge, and like that's it, right?
Mhm.
And you know, but after the financial crisis, investors, you know, quickly realized the ones that still hadn't, that you can't trust the media because they missed the whole thing. You know, it was a disaster, and you can't trust the banks, Wall Street, because this is their fault, you know, quote unquote, their fault to begin with. You can't trust anybody. So now let's go to the source. So that's where all these blogs started coming up. VCs that were experts in VCs had, you know, Fred Wilson had his blog. You know, then you have like the doomer in Zero Hedge, and then you've got like your business gossip with the deal breaker, and like things started coming up. Then you got your economist sort of
Mhm.
guy with Barry Ritholtz, and then Josh Brown has his reform broker, Perlman has his like psychology shit, and then Howard Lindzen with the VC stuff. So all my friends have blogs. So they were like, why don't you have a blog? I was like, I don't know. So they started up, they literally built a blog for me, and I just started, you know, sharing the stuff that I was sharing amongst them, like through email, because I was writing, but I was just emailing a bunch of people things. I wasn't publishing on a blog. So that's when that started, and the rest
Mhm.
is history.
And so you saw a lot of people that were older than you that were just sticking to the script and cold calling, right? I mean, that's the same thing that I saw. And you said something that was interesting. You said that it was scary. And it was
Yeah.
scary, yeah, because you don't want to be that person. You know, you don't want to grow up to be that person. But also, I thought it was scary when I went to Wall Street because, you know, these are the people that everybody trusts with their life savings. And you see, you know, and you see a sort of a persona come on when they talk to their clients. And then you see after that, for some people, they were savvy, smart, cared, read all the books, learned like us. We would learn about the analysis and stuff like that. So, and of course, you know, brokerage firms, they kind of get painted with the same brush or one of two brushes. You know, it's either Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in Trading Places, or it's the Wolf of Wall Street in the movie Boiler Room. There's no real representation of what we went through, which was kind of a, you know, blue collar type of people, maybe, or, you know, whatever it was that wanted to start a business, that were entrepreneurs, were interested in the analysis and things like that. I went to Wall Street when I was 17 and a half. My thing was I just felt this deep sense of guilt because I always wanted to go to college. They were trying to recruit me when I was 15 and a half, 16 years old, because there were kids going into, you know, into Wall Street
It was a
very
different
young.
time. It was a
Yeah.
different time. And then you also lived in Queens. So all these kids had older brothers that were stockbrokers making a
Yeah.
fortune out in Long
That's
Island.
exactly what it
Like
was.
it
No,
was
in
Long Island,
Manhattan.
Queens. Because how much older are you than
Well,
me?
my guys were in Manhattan. They were going to Manhattan every day. And so
Yeah,
I
fine,
was
but it
born,
was both.
I was born in 77. I'm 46 right
So you're
now.
5 years older than me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I went in 95 before I turned 18. I really wanted to go to college. Anytime they tried to recruit me, I said, listen, first I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to come see you. And I had this conversation maybe 10 times. And then my family wanted to move to Maryland and they bought a house in Maryland. And at first I told them I was going to go because things were crazy in Queens. Everything was crazy back then. This was in the mid 90s. So, and at the last second, I said I didn't want to go, but now I'm 17 and what am I going to do? I have to stay in Queens. So I convinced my high school to let me take extra credit to get out 6 months early. I told them I was moving, so why am I going to re-register for a few months? So I got out early. I went to Wall Street. Luckily, like most of the people that worked there, I was friends with, it was their older brothers, just the same
Right.
thing that you said. And then, I don't know, you get to know other firms, you get to know people around Wall Street, and then it does become very scary because you're like, well, these are people that control a lot. And then you get to know the bigger people and the people that control even more. And then, you know, coming from being a teenager, you know, where you really, it was just a few years ago you believed in Santa Claus, you know? So like you expect everything. Everybody who wears the white jacket is, you know, trust them medically. Everybody who wears the uniform, they're a good person. And, you know, and then you get to Wall Street and then you see like this is my first experience of holy shit, like this, there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors here, you know, and then you start looking at politicians and everything else the same way, you know, medicine. Um, that to me was the scary part. Growing up to becoming the person who's only reading rebuttals and things like that, that never scared me because I felt guilty for not going to college. And so immediately I dove into all the companies that I was talking about and pitching on the phone for, you know, to try to get the new accounts. I would dive deep. And then Paul Arbitman actually gave me my first technical analysis book. And another guy started just feeding me technical analysis books. I think it's called Technical Analysis, Financial Markets, Technical Analysis and Stock Market Profits was from like 1933. That was my first book. Candlestick charting, Steve Neeson, and then it just got into all of the other ones.
Sure.
Yeah, man. So you started All Star Charts when?
So it started the blog in 2010, and that was really kind of like just
It was
a
just a
way.
blog.
I'm sorry.
It started out just being a blog, not a.
Started off as a blog, just being on Twitter and StockTwits, and a lot of my other friends had blogs, so that's what it started out as. And then very quickly, I'm starting to get quoted in Bloomberg and CNBC and da 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 da. And then they started inviting me to, go on TV, and Yahoo Finance was doing a whole bunch of stuff at the time. And next thing I know, I'm hosting CNBC Fast Money, and like all that happened pretty quickly. And so I started managing a hedge fund. I started a hedge fund. It was just startup. We had like less than 10 million in assets, and kind of just in the grind, trying to raise money, trying to be the next, Paul Tudor Jones. Mm-hmm. like any kid in his late 20s. I mean, maybe not any kid in his late 20s, but that was this particular kid in his late 20s was doing those things. Just running the New York, runarounds, just happy hours, GLD 10-year anniversary at the freaking life. That's just, doing Bloomberg in the morning, CNBC in the afternoon, then Fox the next day, and then this one, and then that happy hour, and then it's so-and-so's birthday, and so-and-so's moving to London every night for years. It was out of control, trying to raise money for the hedge fund. I mean, it was wild. I stayed away from drugs, and I stayed away from prostitution, and that probably, that's probably the best advice I could ever give anybody. Like, if you're young and you're making some money and, you're single, if you're single, making a few bucks, and you're in your 20s, early 30s in New York City, if you could stay away from the drugs and prostitution, like, you are so far ahead of the game.
Right.
I saw so many people go down.
Yeah.
Hard with both of those, or one or the other. But like, you skip out on those two, I mean, I hate to say like it's that simple. Some people are like, GC, why do you have to be so crude? It's not about being crude. That's the truth.
That's not crude to me. That's first of
all,
not
you know, but like people who might not know.
People who are in our industry, I mean, mostly these are aggressive people. They're the type of people that'll end up doing everything. They want to taste it all, So we people who will start with nothing, build a business just by calling people on a list, until the point where they actually become somebody who's making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at a, low 20s or in your teens even. And then, some of these people made 7 figures a year. And a lot of them, they didn't come from actually very humble beginning. Like, there's the 5 boroughs, but there were people that I met on Wall Street that lived upstate their whole life, or they lived way out on the island, or way in a nice neighborhood in Jersey. And they didn't get into anything, really bad until, they're here now, they're 29, 30 years old. And all of a sudden they get, they were selling cars, and now they're, or they were selling at the Wiz, like stereo equipment or something. They were salespeople, and then now they're here. And then for the first time, they get introduced to New York City life, and, you know, a lot of people fall into that category. And most of the people that are successful are aggressive. They talk, you know, they have the gift for gab. Now you're out there and you're talking, and there's, you know, you're hooking up with people, and like you said, you're getting involved in all sorts of things. Just maxing. They just want to max things out. So the people that max things out money wise in terms of growing their business, they max it out in other ways too. And yeah, they get taken down, like you said. You see these people go down. And the thing about that also is there's another, let's call it the Great Separator on Wall Street, at least in the areas that we were. You know, you have these people, they build these books of clients, and you know, they take half of their money line and put it into one stock because they think it's going to go up 10 times or whatever the reason is. They build their book and then they crush it and blow it up, and then they start from nothing. And it's like,
it's a good lesson.
When you're 21, okay, fine. And you do that again and you blow it up again. Now you're 24. You're like, all right, I've done this before. I'll do it again. And you do it again.
Brought that up.
Now you're in your 30s and you're like I have to do this. Like, wow. And your threads are, you know, off. You know, the wheels have no more grip. It's like, and then
so I learned, and these are good lessons. So I'm glad you brought this up, because these are such good lessons. You know, you learn a lot of lessons by watching other people make really poor choices. Great lessons. You know, some lessons you got to learn yourself, right? But there's some lessons that it's just watch other people, look what happens, and you hit the nail right on the head. And there was, you know, this one guy, I mean, this happened several times, but one story in particular that really impacted me was this guy. He had all his clients were in this one company. I think it was Adventrix Pharmaceuticals. Does that ring a bell?
No.
Adventrix Pharmaceuticals. And this was in 2006 or 2005. I don't know.
Adventurous Pharmaceuticals?
No, Adventrix. I think it was
I was about to say Adventurous Pharmaceuticals is a great name, but
no, okay. I know. If we start a pharmaceutical company, we can call it that. No, so Adventrix Pharmaceuticals, this guy had millions of dollars of his customers' money in there. He had all his money in there. He had call options for his clients and himself, like all in.
I'm gonna be a billionaire.
Adventrix Pharmaceuticals was to the moon. Literally, the book, his own money, leveraged options, the whole. And then I remember the CEO of the company, because he's not doing anything wrong. Like, his customers are very happy owning that. They have other accounts and other money. Like, it's not like this, you know, right? Like, it's fine. Like, compliance wise, it's good. You know, he could do whatever he wants with his money. It's a free country. Like, there's nothing illegal about what's happening here, but it is strongly ill-advised, obviously, by anybody who's monitoring the situation, including the CEO. And I remember their CEO telling him, be like, sell some just for yourself, for your clients, like, because they were.
I've been on the other end of that conversation many times.
Right. Like, sell some. Everybody's making money. You're making money. Like, you've made a lot of money. Like, sell some, and then let the. No. And then what happens? One night, because all these pharmaceutical companies, all their bad news happens at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you don't know that, now you do. They're all in the middle of the night. And something happened, whatever. I don't even know what they did. Some drug, I don't know. Whatever it was, bad things happen all the time with these kind of companies. Yeah, they're cooking the books, whatever it is. No, it was like an FDA thing.
Right, always, but I'm saying in general, but in this case, FDA, yeah.
This thing's down 60, 70% overnight, easy, just completely crushed. By the way, 67% overnight, and then continued lower, like just never stopped after that, never came back. Everything's wiped out. Everything went to zero. His entire business is blown up. All his clients obviously are not happy with him. All his money's gone, leverage to the hilt, never sold anything, done. To be able to see that happen in real time from beginning to end was such an amazing lesson for me. Like, holy shit, don't do that. Bad idea. You know.
Do you recognize, I think it might have been a WWE wrestler. Was there one named Rainmaker? I think Rainmaker was one, right? I think it was, let's just assume it's Rainmaker. Here's the story. I remember, because when everybody on Wall Street would be calling the same leads, basically. So, you know, they get 10 calls a day. And by the way, the people that are calling them, you probably know 2 people that called them that day from other firms, or maybe even your firm.
Well, I didn't know that many stockbrokers. You grew up in Queens. Like,
well, I knew a lot of people. So, but the thing is that I would talk to a lot of people who were all started saying that they were getting pitched Rainmaker, or that they own a shitload of Rainmaker with their broker over at firm I won't say the name. But then we recruited some brokers to come over and work with us, and they told us that all of that started at that firm because this one dude, his favorite wrestler was Rainmaker, the same name as the company. So
Oh,
that's why they're putting tens of millions, of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars into this position.
because he
And
likes the name of the company.
yeah, yeah.
The worst part is that a trade like that could actually probably work better than
Yeah,
so.
in a market like that, yeah. I mean, it was like it was the big internet boom. Everything was working. I was watching the stock. It was crushing. It was doing really well, and then it got just absolutely flattened like a lot of stocks back then.
No, for sure. And listen, these were all great learning lessons that, once I was managing money, putting up the hedge fund, that was really advantageous, understanding who the customers were. I was working with a lot of traders at hedge funds. These are like big, huge funds, which was really cool, because then I started to be like, these guys are paying me, and I'm getting information from them because they're asking me questions all day. I'm asking them right back, so just amazing, learning from different types of investors over the years. And now, speaking of brokers, my biggest segment of customers are financial advisors. Financial advisors come to
Yeah,
us for model portfolios and, for our macro views and sector
yeah.
rotation work and everything like that.
You know,
Um,
I remember, when you were strictly advising hedge funds and institutions. That's before you got into the financial publishing
well,
where
that's how I
we
got
also have
into it.
retail.
I
Yeah,
didn't even know that this business existed.
yeah.
I was just literally writing it was a blog, and then it was a blog, and then a letter to LPs when I was managing the hedge fund, right? And that was the beginning of like, well, why don't we sell this that we're doing? We're doing all the work anyway. If nobody buys it, I still have to do it. So that's how we started selling at a very high institutional price tag. And then realized that there's a larger audience for this. We'll lower the price.
Yeah, you just
We'll,
have to speak a little more simple terms, to retail, so that they can understand very, very easily, and it doesn't
structure
get
it, in a
wonky.
way that is consumable. And then what we found out is that because of our process is very top-down oriented, it suits a lot of different types of investors, and they could stop wherever they want. So for example, we start our analysis from the top down. We look at every stock market index on the planet. We look at every sector, every industry group. We look at every single stock in the Russell 3000. Like, we are in the weeds from a top-down perspective. So when we talk about our macro view and our intermarket views with commodities and interest rates, a lot of investors that come to us, that's all they're interested in. They don't care that we're then shorting Apple or buying Berkshire Hathaway. Like, they don't care about any of that. They just want the macro perspective, the sector rotation work, and they're good there. Then we have another subset of customers that come to us, and they don't care about any of the macro stuff. They don't care what I think about interest rates. Give me the trade, JC. Oh, this trade is because of all of those things over there. I don't really care about that. What's the trade? Right? And even Sean works at All Star Charts. He's our chief option strategist. He's a perfect example. He doesn't care about any of that. When we're arguing about credit spreads and this and that, he's just like yawning. Like, what is the trade?
Yeah.
Got it. We're buying NVIDIA. Great. Let's see what we could do and see the implied volatility is showing this. So let's buy this call and sell that put, whatever. But he doesn't go to work until the trade is put out. Everything before that, some stuff he's kind of interested in. Most of it he's not, right? It's just give me the trade. And we have a lot of customers that way. And then, of course, you got people like me that are just nerds that want both. I want the macro view. I want the sector rotation. I want the trades. Like, give it to me. That's me.
How do you feel managing, a business? You're a technical analyst, right? You went from blogging, first of all, managing money, right? Managing money for retail and institutional, blogging, then selling your stuff to institutional, and then selling your stuff to retail. And now you have a business, and now you have employees, and now you have operations and accounting and legal and taxes and all this other stuff that is not managing money or analyzing price behavior. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about that now? Do you feel like you get sucked in? It's kind of a slippery slope, or what do you think about that?
Well, I think it gets back to having a good team. People that are really good at
You
the
have to be good at
things.
finding that good team and identifying them.
Fine. Yeah.
Got to be your skill set.
Totally. And, there's a lot of loyalty. I treat my people really well. People that I work with, people that help me, I help everybody as much as I can. Even if you're not working with me, I'm still, come to me if you ever need anything, and, I'll see what I can do,
Mm,
so that's, it comes back, I guess, as they say. So, like, I hate accounting with a passion. I
mm,
hate it. Now, I need to understand it. I get it. The top line, the expenses, the bottom line. I get it. I'm with you. I just don't like talking about it. I don't like looking at spreadsheets of income statements. It just doesn't
mm,
make me happy.
mm,
Drinking wine, eating a ribeye, looking at some charts, those things, listen to music, those things make me happy.
mm.
But as a business owner, to your point, you got to do that. Do I want to go talk to my attorney? Because, well, in this case, it's about wine because I own a winery in Napa Valley. In this case, of wine, but I have to deal with my attorney because I guess we didn't like report our crush, because when we harvested, we have to crush the grapes and that whole thing. We have to report it. I guess nobody reported it, so now I got to call my attorney and figure out what happened. That's not fun. What's fun is going to Napa and then tasting the wine that we grew and put it in the bottle and be like, now that's fun.
Well,
But
so to that point, so the wine thing is fun, and you're talking to an attorney about the fun thing, the wine thing that you're doing for fun. Now, okay, so you wanted to get into the wine business. It's not like you were into wine and then somehow
no,
you
but I'm
kind of
getting like text messages from like an investigator in California. Like, how come you haven't reported your crush? I'm like, what crush, bro?
yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, being an entrepreneur, you're a creator. You need to create, you need to build, and you probably have a desire to solve problems of some sort. I actually retired when I was probably 35 years old. I thought I was a big shot because I got to retire in my 30s, just like I always said I would when I went to work on Wall Street. And what happened to me was I must have been the most annoying retiree to know, because I'm trying to fix everybody else's life problems. I'm latching onto everything I can to try to fix and build and fix and think of trajectory for everybody. And I must have been the most annoying melon farmer and mother huffer in the
Melon
planet.
farmer.
Yeah, I must have been yeah, that's the network mother effer, network TV. So I mean, but so for wine business, that's kind of a fun thing. You didn't kind of slip into that with financial publishing. It kind of feels like you slipped into that a little bit. So blogging, okay, let's charge money. Okay, let's go to institutions, charge money. Let's go to retail and charge money. Okay, now we're in this world where I live, where it's not only like I like to provide services and product. I like to analyze markets, manage money. That's what I love to do. That's where my passion is. And I like teaching people things because I like helping people. So I kind of do that. And I don't want to have a boss who's going to tell me what not to do and what not to bring out. And they don't understand the vision as well as I do. So, all right, let's start my own company and build around this thing. I started a company because I had to start a company because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. As opposed to me saying, you know what would make a lot of money if I were a serial entrepreneur and I built this thing and I sold and that's the whole point. For me, it's like, I want to provide this. You got to build a company around that. Thinkorswim started that way. They were the platform that they were using. Sosnoff and JJ and all them were using that platform to trade options. They were market makers and floor traders. And then they said, this is so cool. We have to build a brokerage firm around it. And then he started Tasty Trades, Tasty Works, and he built a brokerage firm around that. And so basically what I'm saying is the wine business that you have, it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, more of something that's a passion and you want to get into a fun little business. And financial publishing, I'm wondering if it's a different thing or it's like what I went through.
No, it's different. It said you slipped into accidentally into financial publishing. I could say that I slipped in accidentally into the wine too, because the publishing side, once we started publishing, we turned it into a very fast growing business, and I wasn't even paying attention to it because I was busy raising money for the hedge fund and trying to grow that.
Right.
I had like this unfinished product, but all these revenues are coming from that. No headaches. Obviously, on the hedge fund side, it's nothing but headaches, and raising money and dealing with LPs and like just doing the best I can. Listen, but I knew what I signed up for. I get it. It's not supposed to be easy. But the publishing side, like I was just, people were loving it. And, just on one side, it's just bitching. And then, like just Cayman Islands, this, and then government trust that. And then you've got the fund admins and, it just never ends. And it's always
whatever
a
the
problem.
business is. Yeah.
Oh, terrible. And then over here, it's like just people telling me how great it is. This is amazing. I'm like, wow, these people are way happier than my fund admins that we didn't submit the right futures statement for because, or whatever, right? Because you got the future statement, then you got the equity statement, and then you got the options. I mean, it's just never ending. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. I convinced my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, mother of 3, let's move to California. Let's get out of here. We'll move to Napa, or because we were on vacation in Napa, and we're like, this is awesome. We should live here, So that's why it wasn't like random. So we're in Napa Valley. This is 2015. And she's like, there's no way that you would move out there. And I was like, move out to California for a couple of years, turn an unfinished product into a business, move back to New York, relaunch the fund, but now have a real business instead of just a half-assed product, which is what it was at the time, at least in my opinion. So boom, we moved. Next thing we know, we're living in Sonoma, right in Sonoma proper, right in the heart of wine country. I'm growing my publishing business. My wife was in logistics. So the Bay Area is obviously huge for logistics, California in general, of course, the whole Asia market. So she ran the Guam trade lane. So we were in Guam a couple of times, like randomly, swing by Tokyo on the way home, so it worked out nicely. But we were right in the middle of wine country. So I started learning, as I'm running the publishing business, no kids, got time on my hands. So I started learning about wine because, when in Rome. So when I lived in New York City, I learned about New York City architecture and different neighborhoods. And like, I love all that old history stuff. So I felt, that was just kind of common sense for me to do. And then living there for a couple of years, one of my buddies was like, oh, you could probably pass level 1 of the sommelier without even studying. I was like, huh, you really think I can? And sure enough, I did. I went and I signed up and I took it. I didn't study. I was like, if I fail, like, whatever, I don't care. I'm in finance. Like, I'm not in the wine business. Like, all the people there are taking more seriously. But I was like, if I fail, I fail. Who cares? And I passed. And I was like, huh. So then I was like, maybe I got something here. So then I ended up becoming a certified sommelier, and I'm a French wine scholar.
That's so cool. You get to say that at parties. You get to say that in social circles. That's so cool.
No, I don't talk about it.
I don't talk about it. That's bullshit. You talk about it every other time I see you. I mean, maybe because we're business friends and friends, but when I hear you, I'm always
people say it for me. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing because we'll go to dinner and then the sommelier come over and then one of my asshole friends be like, he's a som. Like, you know what I mean?
It sounds derogatory. He's a som.
No, but
you little som ass.
Like, they just like don't even. But like you don't have to say it. Like you ask like real questions. Like in 2 seconds, I could tell like if you're a real trader or right away. It's the same thing in wine world. Like if I'm asking certain questions in a certain way, he knows that I know what I'm talking about. Like you don't have to be like, I passed that test that one time.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah.
So what are your asshole friends will tell you for you?
You're an entrepreneur. What would you say were your darkest days as an entrepreneur, when it just like either maybe you felt like getting the hell out of it, or you just were feeling like you were in a corner, you don't know how to unwind it? Like, what's your darkest time?
Yeah. Listen, probably right around that period, maybe like 2012, 13, maybe. It's not so much darkest. It's a lot of unknowns. You're in the grind. You're pounding the pavement. You're talking with investors. You're not sleeping a lot. It's a young man's game. That's for damn sure. I can't be able to hang like that. I mean, out every night, happy hour starting at 4, getting home God knows what time, doing it again the next day, all day work, out again. I mean, that's aggressive. Wow. And then, you're on TV all the time and, running here and then meeting here. And then it's just, listen, it's a nonstop grind. I mean, like I said, fortunately, I was exercising a lot at the time and I wasn't into drugs or really bad things at all. So, it kept my nose clean, kept in decent shape. I mean, maybe not the best shape, but at least I was, I was young, I was in good shape. And, that was tough. That was exhausting. And then maybe a couple of times when I was living out in California where I was traveling a lot, like my body started breaking down a couple of times. I remember I was in India. I had been in India for like a week. I hadn't eaten any meat in like, I don't know how long. My body was like just some, I guess I eat, I eat a lot of meat, red meat. And then in India, there is just none of that. And I guess maybe I took that maybe for granted, I guess, how my body would react. And then
Mm-hmm.
you're out all, you're on the other side of the world, you're out all night, you're running all over the city,
Mm-hmm.
interview here at this company, meeting over here at this firm, going to Bloomberg, presentation at night and whatever. I mean, and my body shut down a couple of times, and it's like, what is all this even for? Like, what am I hustling so hard for? I mean, granted, I was having fun, so it's not like I don't want to pretend like I was a martyr, but there were some times where my body was just like, enough, like we can't have this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you make it out, of there alive, and you get the big check.
Mm-hmm.
And like that sign of, I mean, it really is emotional, like that relief, sort of situation,
Mm-hmm.
when you sell a company, and it's like, wow, like, now it presents new, not problems, but new situations that you didn't have before. Like it's not like it's perfect now that you get paid, but it certainly relieves a certain level of stress, that you, and the anxiety of the unknowns, particularly I have a young family. The fact that I know that my family's taken care of, like that's a big deal for me. Like I couldn't have said that 5, 8 years, 10 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right, and that's what makes it all worth it. And you in particular, JC, you have a reputation of good guy, clean guy. Exactly kind of what you're talking about here. I remember when I think I first met you, maybe it was 2017 at Stocktoberfest in San Diego on Coronado Island, I think, and I don't know if it was there. I saw you at a few different events, but I think there you brought your wife or either I think she was your wife at the time. I'm not sure, but I don't know if it was there or another event. But I remember thinking that, oh, here's a guy who's bringing his family to the event. Here's a guy who's bringing. And when I talk to you, you talk about your kids all the time. You're very much a family person. And even my coworker Kelly, she always says, "Oh, I love JC," and he's such a good guy, and it's always very, very family type of comments, and so, but you work a lot, man. You're like me, and I have two kids, and I know what it's like to be married and have a couple kids and be out all the time with all these, like you said, late night, presentations or whatever it is. And even when you're going and you're having a good time at a thing like Stocktoberfest, it's out on this island and everything. Um, it's a good time, but it's work. You're there to meet
Yeah.
people for work. You're there to build your business for work, so man, I know what it's like to make those sacrifices. So, I'm interested in what you have to say there, because I know, a lot of people that are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs are going to watch this, right?
Yeah. Well,
And it's very easy to dive in, and it almost feels like it's critical that you don't pay attention to anything else, and that could affect things, in the personal and family life. So what's your take on this?
Well, see, for me, it's like cheating, because I started having kids. It just, the timing of me getting more wealth and having kids came simultaneously. So the hustle, the hardcore hustle for so many years happened before kids. So I didn't have anything else. I literally just had to work, and then I had my girlfriend, and then ultimately my wife, but that's it. I had no other responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So I could focus, to hop down to, Coronado, like you said, for an event, or go to India or Hong Kong or Singapore or Dublin, London, whatever. All right, let's go. Like there was no like, shit, I got my kid's soccer practice, and then who's going to take, the kid to the doctor. Like it's different. And now, I don't have to travel all over the world and do all of those things. I can sort of pick and choose the things that I really, really want to be at, or the things I really, really have to be at,
Mm-hmm.
or a combination thereof. And I don't have to make those sacrifices. I don't live in the city anymore. I live out in the suburbs. I'm an hour and change from the city. So if I need to go meet somebody for lunch in Manhattan tomorrow, be like, all right, I'll meet you for lunch tomorrow. I'll meet you for dinner, happy hour, breakfast, whatever, but I'm also an hour from Philly.
Yeah.
Not that I'm never in Philly for other than
Well, where
concerts.
are you? You're in Pennsylvania. You're somewhere near Philly, right?
Yeah,
That's what
so
you
I'm in
said.
the Lehigh Valley, so I'm
Mhm.
east of Bethlehem. So I'm
Okay, I
right
know
where,
exactly where that is.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you take 78 out the Holland Tunnel
The
from
college is
Manhattan,
right there, right? Lehigh
just go
University, right?
I'm
Mhm.
5 minutes from Lehigh. Drove by it earlier today. So yeah, so I can hop down to Philly, usually for concerts. And I'm from Miami, so I'm a Heat fan, Dolphins fan. So the
Mhm.
Dolphins played in Philly. The Heat play in Philly all the time. So I'm there. I'm 2 hours from Baltimore, 2.5 from DC. So it's kind of like I got a good little situation going where I'm at. I like it.
Cool. Yeah, it's great, man. I mean, you really, yeah, you're like, you have such a pristine reputation as a good person, and that's so important.
Well, I appreciate
Being on
that.
Wall Street. No, it's true, man, and especially being on Wall Street and things like that. It's really important to have that kind of reputation. Um, so let's see. Um, as far as what would you do after this? Let's just say you graduated from this, from all-star charts and what wine. What would be the next thing? Is there a next thing?
I mean, for me, I'm going to be trading and investing for the rest of my life, right?
I feel the same.
I mean, like, I can't think of a situation where I would have so much money that I would not be interested in what the market's doing, and like I wouldn't like wake up and like see what the futures are doing. Like, why? I can't see like there's people that are like, oh, JC, take a day off, take a break. You're on vacation. You don't need to worry about the market on
It's our
vacation.
identity.
It's not about worrying about it. I enjoy it. I'm generally interested in the score of the game.
Yeah, of
Is
course.
essentially like, yeah, like I'm watching the Nasdaq right
And
now up 1%. Great. It may
and
be,
it's a chart of history unfolding too. It's
that's
a
right. You're
historical.
literally watching in real time the world evolving in real
Yeah.
time. Um, so I will always have something in the market. And then when it comes to publishing, I can't see a situation where I wouldn't. Like, it's so therapeutic to write your thoughts down on paper every
Mm.
day. I've done it for 15
Yeah.
years or more now at this point. Like, I can't imagine not blogging of some kind, you
And you're such a
know.
better trader, such a better investor, such a better
Oh my
analyst because
God.
you have a responsibility now. You're publishing this. I remember anytime I put together a course or anything, I was just on point. So it was the best track record, the best eras of my life have been when I'm creating a course because I have to say everything exactly correctly and I'm cross-referencing it with what's being said over here. And you're forced because you're
It
accepting
makes you,
payment for it.
yeah, but forget all that. Let's say you do it for free, right? Forget all that. It forces you to think through things. In order to put something down on paper, you actually have to think it
Mhm.
through.
Yeah.
And it's harder to do if you're not forcing yourself to putting it down on paper. It's hard to have that discipline, if not impossible.
Mhm.
So it really, and then it's a great way to make friends. I've been writing for so long. I have and doing videos and podcasts and stuff like that for so long. I have so many friends, like in literally every city in the world.
Mhm.
I can meet up with some traders or some financial advisors or guys that anywhere, and I've taken them up on most of those cities. I've had a lot of fun around the world with
Mhm.
these particular characters, but
Mhm.
had I not put myself out there and shared my thoughts and feelings on markets in this case, but it could be anything, then I wouldn't have any of those friends, and that would
Yeah,
suck. Like the amount of beautiful people that I've met over the years. Oh,
that's interesting. I mean, that's really great. I actually had lots and lots of Wall Street friends or money management world friends. We call them Wall Street, even if they're even if they've never been to Wall Street. But I kind of disengaged with that. When I got into financial publishing, I kind of went on to this island. It was this feeling like I was turning my back on Wall Street when it happened. Because I remember I wanted to start another financial publisher that I was acquired before. This is before True Market Insiders. And I was working at a brokerage firm. I'd started my own brokerage firm. There's a DBA of another firm that I won't mention their name, but I remember saying like, look, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to use your backbone, basically your operations. We're going to be what you call an OSJ, basically a brokerage firm that you start. And I said, listen, I'm also going to raise money for and potential and start a financial publishing firm. I explained what it is. It's like Motley Fool, but whatever. And I got the okay, right? Because you're raising money private. It's a private placement, so you have to get the okay from the broker. And when they really started digging into what it was, right? And I gave them the business plan, and then I started transferring all my clients over, and now I'm already in with them. They stopped and they were like, "Hey, you can't do this. This basically goes against us, what we're doing. Like what you're doing is you're giving people institutional quality research at this low price, and you're giving it to retail investors, and we don't like that." And we didn't understand that that's what that was. And so basically they were saying, you got to take one path or the other. And I had already transferred a bunch of clients over to here. So I had to make a decision if I was going to go into this new thing, which it's questionable. You don't know if it's going to work, but you feel like it's the right thing to do. Coming out of the bear market of 2000 to 2003, after you went through the 90s with the brokers in the boiler rooms and everyone's kind of got stung in one way or another, and then they get smashed with the bear market, similar to kind of recently. And then the clouds part, the sun comes out. What are you going to do? You're going to stay in that world, or are you going to? And by the way, when I say that world, it's the way that people view it. You know what I mean? Like there's great people, but at the time there was a stink on it. Or are you going to, for a few $100s a year that you could sell this for, right? Make it accessible to everybody. Do this thing. And I left my business there. I turned my back on that. I forget how I started talking about this. How did I start talking about this? Do you remember? It's doing stuff that you like to do. I think I just might have changed gears altogether. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it made sense for you.
yeah, and everybody thought I was crazy for doing it. Everybody thought I was nuts because I'm leaving money management, basically. I mean, I still manage some money, friends and family, but you're basically turning your back on money management, which is a guaranteed check that you have. And you look like a lunatic when you start a company. And you kind of have to be a lunatic to start a company in a sense.
Yeah, but you want to know something? When I started a blog, I was told that there were too many blogs already and the world doesn't need another blog. This was in 2010.
Like podcasts.
When I started my podcast, the world doesn't need another podcast, another podcast. Are you kidding me?
Thing in the world. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. You were talking about making friends, and I was saying I kind of went away, and in that whole psychology of the brokerage was like us or them, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm getting away from you guys. I'm gonna do this over here. And I kind of went so balls to the wall on that I just kind of stopped talking to my Wall Street friends, and then I started kind of getting back into it recently. But you know what else? I do stand-up comedy, as you know. I do stand-up comedy. And
You're
that's
funny.
interesting too, Ben. Thank you. That's interesting too, because, I can go to Arizona and I've got 150 friends, because of a few times that I went there and everybody knows who you are. And then they see you on stage and there's loads of comedians in the audience. So the experience you described with financial people, I probably would be doing a little bit better if I had that, if I had maintained that group of friends. But I have the same thing with stand-up comedy. You can go to New York, you can go to California, you go to a lot of different places, and you just plug into this network. And it's a different kind of person. They're not as responsible with money, but it's fun. You get to plug into that network.
It's a whole nother animal altogether. And I see it in the wine world because, people think like sommeliers and wine, it's like all these rich people, not the people in the service business. They're the opposite of rich.
Right.
So it's not that at all.
Mm-hmm.
These are waiters essentially trying to become like the sommeliers at restaurants and to be buyers for big companies and stuff like that. Like, they're working their way up the food chain. So it's very, very different conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the comedians, or maybe in the wine business too. They're thinking of maybe it's like a lottery ticket crypto kind of, if anything, if they're going to invest. I know a few people that had, nothing, paycheck to paycheck, and then they invested in some crypto, and then they became millionaires, and I worry about those people because when you get that money very quickly after not having
it's gone.
It's gone. It's almost guaranteed to be gone. And that, I think, if there's something else, if I had the bandwidth to do it, if I were to do something else, I'd probably try to focus on new money, because it's so critical. You see how fast I didn't even get to finish my sentence and you say gone, so everybody knows it's like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
That happens.
Well, you see that there's a documentary called Broke which is about like all the athletes that make like
Oh
$100
yeah,
million
classic.
and it's gone. Like, how do you
Yeah.
blow through $100 million? Like,
The guy behind you, Mike Tyson, I like, is that signed? Mike
yeah,
Tyson
it
did
is.
that. Same story with that guy, man.
Yeah.
How do you go from $100 million to being in debt and broke? Man, money attracts also the wrong friends. Did you hear
Yeah.
about this guy? I think his name is Jutna Singh. He told the cops that he thought that he won a crypto competition, and he had done is he put $100 in his wife or his girlfriend's name and into her bank and started with $100. And then because the names didn't match in the account, they send him a refund. So they go to send him a $100 refund. This is crypto.com. And an employee out in Bulgaria goes to send him the refund and accidentally puts the account number in instead of $100. So they sent him $10.4 million deposited into the friend's bank. He gives a million of it away. The girl whose bank it was tried to flee to Malaysia. She got arrested. The guy, he only got charged with theft, but he hasn't given back the money uh, yet. And so you have this mother of three who gets $10 million in her bank account. Um, she refused to give it back, and I guess he pleaded guilty for theft. But I know he bought like 2 blocks of land in this country, and he bought, he went on a buying spree. Did you hear about this guy?
No.
Yeah. Well, I once had like the U.S. Treasury sent me like 50 grand one time. I sent it right back. I don't want your money. I don't know what this is. I don't know what you're trying to do here, but maybe you don't like I'm talking about taxes in the wrong way,
Right.
But yeah.
That's funny, dude.
What
But
about
yeah, like I've noticed, once you get entrenched into a community and you start to meet people, as it turns out, this world is filled with a lot of really good, nice people. You'd be surprised. You see,
right?
the angry people and the mean people might be ample.
Uh-oh, frozen. Uh-oh.
There's so much awesomeness out there,
You froze for a second. You froze for a second.
I was saying there's so much awesomeness out there.
Yeah, the people. Yeah, I mean, the media doesn't want you to think that. It doesn't help politicians if everybody's friendly, but it is true. If you just watch the news and you think everybody hates each other, but you get to know people, like I'm forced to get to know people through business, right? So whether it be people that run other companies, and these are wealthy people, and we went to Wall Street too. That was another thing. I remember growing up in Queens thinking that, wealthy people just, they're born into wealth and that's just how it is. And you go to Wall Street, right? And you realize it's not only that the people that are the most successful, it's not only that they actually are blue collar people that came from nothing and developed a work ethic. It's not only that, it's that those are also the people that want to help you when you don't have anything. If they see you're working, those are the people that are like, here's somebody who doesn't have shit, or they went through some hard time in their life, and I want to help them, lend a hand, bring them up. And some people, you only need to tell them a little bit, like some people know nothing. They start with nothing. I remember when this guy, the guy I was thinking of who went to Wall Street and got into drugs around 29 years old. But he's a great dude. But I remember him saying, asking me why I'm renting, like, what are you renting for? You put money down, you buy a house, you build your wealth. And I said, oh, okay. I did that. And like a couple years later, I have like 300 grand just from doing that, starting with 10. And some people just need to be told these things, they don't have anybody. They don't even have the first starting point.
Yeah, but I think that you gotta put yourself in that situation. I think that, I figured when I was younger, I wasn't the smart, coming in the street, I wasn't the smartest guy. I wasn't maybe the most talented guy, but I figured if I worked harder than anybody else, at the very least, that'll get the attention. And so that was really my strategy. And, I was a baseball player. I was an athlete forever. Or maybe I wasn't an athlete. I was a baseball player. I was a pitcher in particular. So, I don't know if that qualifies, but nevertheless, you
I thought
have
you were a
some,
catcher.
yeah, no, thanks. I was, just used to working hard. So that sort of strategy was kind of easy. I'll be like, all right, I'll just work harder than everybody else and see what happens. And, so a lot of people went out of their way to help me because I feel like it's easier to help somebody that's working their tail off versus
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't care and is lazy. Like, why am I going to help that guy?
I think they live like vicariously through you though, like they've made it, but they they think back, they're proud of themselves. You know, they know what they did, they earned it. And then they see somebody else doing it and they want to kind of relive that, or you know, somebody probably helped them too. So I know I love to help people. Like I love helping people. Um, I don't know if it's because people helped me. You know, I got a lot of help when I was younger. You know, people saw me come in and rolling in a wheelchair. They know this happened a couple years ago, but I'm still going to work on time every day. And then, so I had a lot of people who were, you know, very big brother-ish to me. And I told you I had a lot of people from the neighborhood that worked at the firm. Dylan Jovanet was the founder of the brokerage firm that I went to work for. And he, like you said, you nailed it. I don't even think you knew it, but you said everybody knows the older brother, or everybody knows somebody who has the
I
older
know how
brother.
it is. I got
Well,
friends from Queens.
Paul Arbitman, Arbs, bully. He, you know, he and Dylan were good friends, and they're the same age. They're both from Fresh Meadows, Queens, and I was the younger generation, but trying to hang out with the older kids always. And they both lived, you know, on my block or up the block from me. And I know Paul went in, Dylan went in, and then Jay, his younger brother, went in, and then they started recruiting a whole bunch of people, and then I went in under Jay, and you know, Jason trained me and everything. And why were we talking about this? Oh, because I had people who actually cared about me. You know, it wasn't just they knew me since I was a, you know, a baby or a paper boy, their paper boy or something. So that it's helpful. I think
And
if
I do that
anybody,
now, though. I see people that are working hard and I go out of my way to help them. And I see lazy people and I don't.
right, right. I think that's just nature. I think it's in our DNA and our blood cells. Like, you know, as a species, as an organism of humanity, we want to produce better, stronger, you know, newer. So we kind of don't want to help the lazy people for that reason too. It's not just like, well, I worked
Well,
hard, and if I worked
it's not
hard,
that
then
I
damn
wouldn't.
you.
If they came up, if they
I think it's
came to me and asked
natural.
for help, I would help, but I'm not going to go out of my way,
Right.
while I would somebody who's really hustling. I'm like, man, this kid is,
Well,
you know,
that's important thing that you just said too, is you know, just the act of asking for help shows that you are
yeah.
somebody who is not necessarily lazy, or maybe you ask for help and you turn out to be lazy, but you got to ask. You know, when I was before I got licensed and I was doing whatever I was doing, you know, before I was licensed and I was just qualifying leads, of course, and that's all, is, you know, we had to get permission to get to take your Series 7 so you can start talking to clients and doing that sort of thing. And I just remember there was this guy, Tony, he was a Chinese guy named Tony. And but we were talking about whether or not we, you know, how do we get Dylan to let us become licensed, you know? And he just did like an impersonation of Dylan. And he goes, Chris, it's like Dylan always says, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And it's like, all right, yeah, that's a great piece of fucking life advice
Yeah.
right there. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So anybody watching this, you know, who might think, well, I don't have friends on Wall Street who recruited me, so what, I can't. You know, let me tell you, if I could tell another story, I'm glad I have a fellow Wall Streeter from the same kind of genre and generation. Let me tell this story. There's a man, his name is Omar Tunkara. Omar Tunkara is an African guy who, when he came here, you couldn't understand a word he was saying. He was Africa earlier that day, working at Wall Street that day, you know? And Dylan hired him because Dylan's that kind of guy, you know? Dylan's like, you know what? This guy
I
knocks
saw a
on.
couple of guys, those guys, and they had a hard time because nobody can understand. You think some guy from the Midwest is going to understand the guy from
Yeah,
Africa? No
yeah,
shot.
yeah. Not only that, but if he didn't sound very much like the next guy who called him to do the second trade, it's awkward and funny. But you know, so you have Omar Tunkara, who you know, cold call you, and you're in Wyoming or Wisconsin, and it's like, Omar Tunkara, I certainly hope you remember who I am. And I was like, I think I would have remembered this call, but go on, you know. And he, I mean, he just got slammed. You couldn't understand anything. He said they put him next to me, and he would be just banging on his desk, was on the phone, and keeping the energy and listening and studying the rebuttals and studying the script and studying the companies and learning about when the internet, you know, was just kind of forming. And this dude was making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a few years. And I always think to myself, and he, you know how he got the job? He didn't get the job by answering an ad or a job posting. He knocked on the door. He said it was at 100 Wall Street was the address. So you go straight down Wall Street, like that last building before
Yeah.
the, you know, and on Wall and Water. And he knocked on the fucking door. you know, and you're on Wall Street, these blue collar people. That's why I say people think either boiler room or they think trading places where it's, you know, there's no way I'm
Yeah,
gonna
but
let
even
this
like
happen.
the old school guys on the floor of the exchange are very, you know, blue collar from Staten
Scrappy, yeah,
Island,
hustlers.
Queens, Brooklyn.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's
So,
always kind of been that, you know, in
yeah,
Chicago, you got a lot of former athletes
right,
and stuff
right.
like that.
So what I'm saying is that you being from the outside, you might not know that. And here's a guy who is as far outside as you can get. He doesn't necessarily know that that's what is
Yeah,
it behind the
but I bet you
door.
he worked his tail off.
Right, but he didn't. He knocked on the door. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So without having that door open, he never would have known that. Oh, these are hustlers, the blue collar people who started from nothing. You know, he's for all he knows, he's knocking on the door. Some asshole is going to come and make fun of him or something. You know, and I'm sure he did get made fun of a
I
bunch
was gonna
too.
say, I'm sure you guys probably ripped him quite a bit.
Well, there were some people in the firm that were actually kind of mean, you know, and
Yeah, but
most of
you
the
know,
people were
but he took it well. I mean, you got to be able to survive in that environment. So you
listen.
guys are breaking balls, but like,
It's
you know,
30 years later, and I'm telling the story of Omar
right.
Tounar. You know, that's how much other people appreciated him. So fuck
Yeah,
these people. These,
right.
you know, like this guy didn't care. This guy didn't care. I mean, he wore the same suit every day, you know, and man, this guy. I mean, just against. I mean, you would think it's against all odds, is what I'm saying.
I hope he's
But
doing well, Omar.
if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And you come in and you realize, wow, here's a group of people who actually they know what it's like to come from nothing. Maybe not from where I came from nothing, but yeah, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. It's such a good thing to live by. And the other one that Dylan's brother, who trained me on Wall Street when we were pitching accounts, the first rule, there were three rules, and the first one was welcome the rejection. Like rule number one, welcome the rejection. You know,
Yeah, assume the first because they say yes, they'll renege. So assume it's a no.
right, and you're one no closer to a yes. You know,
Yeah.
so if you live by that, and we
Well,
Dylan
that's
made
the but
everybody.
isn't the goal to get to the first no as quickly as possible?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Get it out of the
Um,
way.
so yeah, because like, what's the reason? Or all I'm asking is for you to listen, and then they say okay, and now they said okay to something, so you're happy that they're okay. They've said to themselves, I'm on board with
But
at least listening.
that's just life. Like I tell the story about my wife, and when we first started dating, you know how many times she stood me up. But hey, here we are,
Good
3
for
kids
you,
later.
man.
How you doing? You
Yeah,
know
that's
what
a
I'm
good
saying?
story.
And
That's a
she was
good
standing
story.
me up again, and she's like, if you want to hang out, you got to take the train and come out to me. Little did she know, I love trains. I really do. And I worked 2 blocks from Penn Station.
Yeah.
It was right on Park
Oh,
Avenue and
perfect. Yeah, so it was
Park,
meant to be, really. It
Park.
was
I
written
was right
in.
there.
Yeah. I remember
Oh, the rest is
I used to
history.
love riding the train also. When I was younger, I was like 15 years old. And this girl that I knew, this girl Pia, really cute girl, but I was in the friend zone, you know. So but she had a
Terrible place to
cousin
be.
who was even cuter than she was, and who was kind of a little bit more my personality, my speed, but she was out in Bay Ridge. And for those who don't know, if you go from Queens to Bay Ridge, you have to go from Queens to the top of Queens, into Manhattan at the top, down to the bottom of Manhattan, and then into Brooklyn. And she was in Bay
Yeah.
Ridge. So it would take me like 4 hours just to walk her home from Queens. Like I would walk her, I would take the train, and just to go see her. But I loved trains, and I also loved cute girls too. So it was like a match made in heaven. So
So you got
um,
to wait for the first no. What's the second one that he taught you?
the second one, talk to these guys.
Talk to these guys.
Meaning get out of pitch mode. Talk to them. You're a human. They're a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. And what's the third thing?
I was wondering if you're going to ask. So that's why I let you go. Because maybe you wouldn't have asked, but I'll say it. They're all fucking liars.
They're all what?
Fucking liars.
Who? The
The person
potential
who says I have
customers?
no money. The person who says I'm
Oh
not
yeah,
interested. The person who says I don't invest. The person who says I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have 5 brokers. That all. The idea is they're going to give you a rejection.
I
You
just got
guys
pitched a deal.
don't believe it.
I just got pitched a deal. I'm definitely going to do it. This is true. This is this morning. I got pitched a deal. I'm definitely going to do it. I'm probably going to do less than he wants me to do. So I'm already hedging, being like, I just bought my company, so I had to shell out some
I can't
cash.
do it.
If you would have caught me a year ago, I would have had more cash on me. So listen. If I really want to move some money around, I could do that right now. I could take down the whole deal myself
Yeah,
if I really
exactly,
wanted to.
exactly,
But I
exactly.
don't, I don't want to do that. So I'm kind of thinking about it, right? But I'm
Right.
already like, even without even kind of thinking in my head how much I'm going to do, I'm already being like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna, yeah, that was
And
today, bro.
so
I'm on
this
the other
guy,
line now. I'm on
this
the other
guy can
line that I
take,
call.
let's call it two basic paths. This guy, whoever's on the other side of that phone, can either go to where you are and dance in that arena because he knows he has you, but at least let's go over here, and good relationship. Or he could just keep talking to you as if he knows for a fact that you could do this if you really wanted to, and he's gonna at least try to bring you there. And now, would that hurt the deal? Do you think he would be like, he's trying to stay with bigger numbers? What would that do to you, the investor?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that because it's $1.5 million deal, and there might be an investor on Tuesday that's going to take down like 2/3 of that, so there might only be 500 left. In which case, like, I do whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I might do it all, might do half, like, it's not going to be a game changer because now there's only let's say I do $500,000, now he's done. Let's say I do $250,000, now this guy only needs to raise another $250,000. My
Yeah,
understanding, he's got another 300 kind of waiting,
yeah, it
so the
happens.
deal's done.
That
So,
happens fast.
this one's a little bit more complicated. It's not, he doesn't necessarily need all of mine. It's a good
Right,
deal. It's a good deal.
right, right, right,
So
right.
I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to have a couple other friends of mine. But anyway, it's interesting being on the other side of the phone
Yeah,
call and understand and playing this game,
it's what we always dreamed of. It's what we always thought. It was all a dream. It's what we always dreamed of, being on the other side of the phone. And it's funny that I watched that movie. I think the movie was Boiler Room. Maybe it's Wolf Wall. They probably said it on both, but they said they want to be the guy on the other side of the phone.
I think it was the Wall Street with the first one
The
from the 80s.
Boiler
That
Room.
one. Oh, you know what? You might be right. They may have said it in
I
both
think they said
movies.
it in both. Yeah,
I think they said it in both. It's
I think.
true. Well, here we
Yeah.
are. How about that? One for the good guys, Chris.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure there's a guy who is now he was Dylan's partner, and now he's in Hollywood. His name is Vince. I'm gonna find out if I could say this. I might have to edit it out later, but it's Vince Maritato, and he now is he's a Hollywood guy. He was an extra, I think, in Wolf of Wall Street. I know that. I'm pretty sure he consulted for them, and he's like an extra in The Irishman, and he's getting bigger and bigger roles now. I see a lot of people actually going. One of the things that people are going to see on the Row Show a lot are going to be actors and people that are Hollywood people, because I know a lot of people that are kind of there. Like I said, this is if you made it, but you have a lot more upside to go. Guys like you, and I'm going to try to do that a lot with comedians, actors, and I see a lot of people that went from Wall Street to Hollywood, which is pretty cool. Would you ever do anything like that? Would you ever get in that spotlight? I mean, you're already on TV and things like that. So
Yeah, I mean, not like acting and like movies. I mean, I got too many kids, like that's like a big commitment. Like, I'm trying to work
how many kids do you
less
have?
and make
Three,
more.
right?
Huh? I got 3 kids. I got twins that are 1. I got a 3-year-old daughter, and then I got twin boys. So I got my
Alexandra?
work cut out for me. Yeah, I don't like to necessarily.
All right, we'll edit it out.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
edit that out. But I like things that I can leverage. I'm in the wine business. I can make a ton of wine. I got a ton of connections in Napa. Let's see how it goes. If it's just a hobby and I break even or lose a little, and now I got all this great juice, like that's cool too. So that's like a no risk, potentially high reward situation that I really like. The
Mhm.
publishing business, people, pay to read what, I have to say and watch the things. I'm doing that anyway. Right.
Right.
So for me, like, great. Like, I'm still going to do it no matter what, whether they pay me or not. So, that works out nicely. So
Mhm.
those are the kinds of like lifestyle businesses. And then I like investing in things that I'm familiar with that are sort of within my ecosystem. So I don't want to talk about the company that I'm doing a deal with, but let's just say that it has to do with wine and business and Wall Street types and like, got it. Another, I don't want to get into another deal that I'm doing, but nevertheless, these are things that are in my ecosystem,
Mhm.
that also can like help other endeavors that I have, like this deal that I'm doing, I'm doing other stuff that this could help out actually,
Mhm.
so that's fun for me. I like doing that sort of stuff.
One thing that I started looking at as a potential private investment, and I don't know what the legalities are, so I'm just going to speak kind of vaguely about it, but But what I think is cool, and I want to invest in things that are cool, and I want to invest my clients into things that are cool and fun that will make money, and that's why they'll make money because they're cool. But it has to do with the world of bare knuckle fighting. So you have UFC, right? I remember every people wanted to ban UFC. They call it cockfighting. They said it was like, people were dying, so they had a point, right? But
Yeah.
and then they added some regulations, but nobody thought UFC would be mainstream, and it's certainly not as big as it is right now. And kind of the next one of those things is bare knuckle fighting. I went to a bare knuckle championship thing at the Hard Rock here in Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, and it was brutal, but it was so much fun. It felt like you're in school and you go around to the back of the deli where you knew there was going to be a fight at 3 o'clock. But anyway, it's the fastest growing combat sport. It's kind of spreading like wildfire, and you have some of these big name UFC people that are getting in and starting these little projects and things like that. So that's pretty cool.
Dude,
It's
check out in Florence. They do this thing, Calcio Storico. It's called
How do you spell
Calcio.
that?
Calcio, so Calcio, Calcio Storico, Storico, Calcio Storico Fiorentino. So this is FIO Fiorentino.
Fiorentino, yeah.
Yeah, Calcio Storico Fiorentino. This is like this game that they've been playing amongst locals there in Florence for like, I don't know how many zillion years. And it's crazy. Like this, like you could really tell, like perhaps like American football may have been derived from this. They have like an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman, but they're not like blocking each other trying to get to the quarterback. They are literally beating the crap out of each other with bare knuckles. So
Really?
they're, oh yeah.
Holy shit.
And there's a ball to get to the other side and
I'm looking
everything,
at
but
it.
it is wild. So I've been to this in Florence. It is bananas. They don't sell alcohol. It is. I think they take some of the guys out from prison to represent their different parts of town or whatever.
Get the hell out of here.
Dude, some of these guys are scary. Some of these Italians. So it was really something, man. It was one of the, and these guys are going crazy. Like the
It's coming to
audience.
Miami.
Calcio Storico? No.
I think I'm looking at Calcio Storico, and then right below that, there's a video coming to Miami, but they might be showing something else. I'm trying to see what the yeah, it looks like they're coming to Miami. Hold on a second. Let me
It's crazy. It's wild.
Limosa.
Calcio Storico. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's
I think
wild,
it
but
might be.
it's not like a touring. It's not like the Harlem Globetrotters. Like it's
Okay.
just like once a year they play this game. It's like in July.
All right, I'm looking at it right now. I'm watching it. Okay, so these
Dude, it's
guys are
nuts.
jacked. These guys are monsters.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, you have different kinds of guys. You got the big guys, and you can kick too. And these guys are huge, so they got long legs.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you got the skinny guys on the outside. It's very similar. Like you got.
Wow, there's like no the video I'm watching right now. There's like no uniforms or matching outfits or anything.
Well,
There's
they're
just a bunch
different. They're
of
like
guys.
red and blue. They're different colors though.
Oh, are they okay? Florence,
They're
Italy.
just full of blood, so it's hard to tell after a while. And they're covered in tattoos. But yeah, they're two
Yeah,
different teams.
tattoos and bandages.
Yeah, dude. And it's crazy because like you'll see one guy will break his arm in the middle of the game or whatever. So he'll have to go the rest of the match kicking and using his other arm because the other
Oh my
arm's broken.
God, these
Oh,
guys
it's
are just.
wild.
I can't believe
Savages.
this exists.
Dude,
This makes bare knuckle look like just the basic 101 foundation.
And this is just like this is like a random piazza. I don't want to be disrespectful and say it's random. I'm sure there's something special about it. This is piazza in Florence, like kind of like off the beaten path. And then they like turned that piazza into like a little high school football stadium, essentially, right? Like with like bleachers on both sides. Like it's not like a stadium. It's like
Right.
literally in a piazza and they throw up like temporary bleachers. It's crazy, dude.
Holy cow! Oh my
Holy
gosh!
cow
There's
is right.
tickets
And then
down
like
on the stretcher.
you can't get tickets because they don't want outsiders to be there. You can't like order tickets and it's Italy, so it's not like it's so organized over there,
Mhm.
So you have to like, I talked to I forgot how, I think through Twitter. I think somebody was DMing me telling me what the story was, like a local. He's like, you go to
Oh
this,
my!
he's
Sorry,
like,
I'm
you go to this corner an hour before, you ask for this guy. And, I thought the tickets were going to be Fugazi because this guy was super shady, like in an alley. And like, but I was with a former defensive lineman who played college football, and this guy is jacked. His nickname was Nitro because he used to have a mullet. This guy was
Nitro.
jacked. I swear to
It's
God,
like an
dude.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. All right.
It just so happened that my wife and I were in Florence, and
The Running
Morgan
Man.
and this guy was there with his wife. So I was like, hey, there's this thing tomorrow. You want to go with me? And
Yeah.
my wife is like, yes, please go with him to this so I don't have to go. And then the wives went to go
Oh, they missed out.
drink. And then me and this jacked guy who has no idea what's going on, just trust me. I'm like, yeah, there's this thing. He's like, all right. This is like the largest man I know.
You must have
So
been the coolest wife's friend's husband he ever met.
Yes, for a variety of reasons.
If you brought me to this thing, like I randomly met you, I'd be like, we got to hang out every day.
Dude, no. So I'm like, yeah, there's this thing. So we go to this. And then like afterwards, everybody storms the field. Right. And then, but the field is just a dirt, dusty field. So now all of a sudden there's these crazy guys and tatted up and like dust is going. So I'm like losing him. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Where's Nitro? I was going to die. And then like that night, so then he obviously was a blast. And then that night we go out, we get to this club called Club Flow or something like that. It was the longest line for a club I have ever seen in my entire life. Wow. And I grew up partying in South Beach in Miami. And I lived in New York City forever. I've seen plenty of lines. Never seen a line this long in my life. And obviously, I'm not going to wait in this line. So I'm like, I'm going to walk to the front and see what I can do. I go up to the front. I start speaking Spanish. I'm like, Juan Carlos, cuatro, Juan Carlos. This girl looks at me like I got 10 heads. I don't see Juan Carlos. She's like, okay, hold on one sec. You get a table? I'm like, yeah, we'll get a table. I'm like, come on down, guys. Let's go. We walk right in. We're the first ones at the club. This guy's like, oh, exactly what you just said. This guy's like, holy shit. We went to the game during the day. Now we're going to the club in Florence. We walked right in. We got a table. We're the first people here.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Did we just become best friends? Yup.
Dude, this guy's like, who is this guy?
Wow. That's great, dude.
So anyway, that's the story about Calcio Storico. But honestly, like I owed it to him because like he took care of me. Like this guy is a humongous human being. So like, you know, when you're in this kind of thing, like I didn't know. At the end of the day, it wasn't as dangerous as like they made it out to be. Like people were like, be careful, you know, don't look at anybody the wrong way. I'm like,
right.
You know, from New York, right? Like, you know.
Yeah, I know how to not get punched in the face.
Right. Exactly. So it wasn't that bad, but I could see somebody maybe who hadn't hung out in Queens or, you know, lived in New York for so long might be like, oh my God, this is scary, but it wasn't bad.
What about Asia? Have you done much in the Asian region, in China, Singapore, that kind of thing?
Not mainland China, but Hong Kong a bunch of times. Love Hong Kong. Yeah, great times.
Taiwan?
Been to Taiwan. Yep, went to Taipei. A lot of New Yorkers in Taiwan. You know, a lot of you been to Taipei?
No, I haven't been to Asia.
Oh, well, Asia's a fantastic place. Taiwan, there's a lot of like speakeasies in Taipei that are based off
like
of
real
speakeasies in like Fugazi speakeasies based off of fake speakeasies in Manhattan.
The style is speakeasy, but everybody knows it's there. Oh yeah.
Yep, exactly.
I like the real speakeasies.
Yeah, but these are like New Yorkers that moved to Taipei and opened these bars. You know, it's like really funny.
Yeah.
Taipei's cool. Great dumplings there. Singapore's cool. It's really small. You know, so Singapore is like really fun to visit. I think I would get one reason it would be fun to live there is because you have access to so many other countries that you could just kind of take puddle jumpers to. So that's cool. But it's kind of just like a cleaner Miami with like less Cubans and Jews and just more, you know, obviously a much more Asian community. You got like, you know, London people and stuff like that, but it looks very Miami, you know, kind of a lot of trees and humid and, you know, it's got a Miami vibe to it. And then like the people obviously are just different cultures, but.
And now you have Taiwan. Taiwan might be China at some point. You know, they've got, so, you know, Taiwan Semiconductor put like $40 billion into a project in Phoenix. It's like a 30-year project. It's like 4 phases that are like each like 5 or 10 years or something like that. And so Phoenix, I think about buying property out in Arizona because they have Sedona, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Tempe. They've got, you know, a growing community, and a lot of people left California. You know, they either went to Texas or they went to Arizona. If they're in entertainment, they're going to Texas. So yeah, I think about that, man. I think about Taiwan. I went to, you know what I did recently? I went to Arizona, and here's another thing. You know, in Arizona, it's mountainous. Obviously, there's a lot of resources that they pull out of the ground, a lot of drilling, and they drill for natural gas, but also they're drilling for helium, and helium is either the second smallest or the smallest molecule gas or gas molecules or something. So they get into these really small nooks and crannies like semiconductors. So they're like entire cities built on a little thumbnail, you know, a semiconductor is ultra small stuff. So they need helium for semiconductors, among other things like MRI machines and NASA stuff, rockets and nuclear things, weapons, things like that. And the big concern is that China could take over Taiwan, which makes I think 2/3 of all semiconductors and 90% of the really sophisticated ones like nuclear warheads, things like that. So trying to bring that business home, and they'd pass the CHIPS deal and all this. So they're building Cali, and they're building in Oregon and Texas and Arizona. So I go out to Arizona, and I drive up to Navajo County. Navajo County, it's crazy. I grew up in Queens, right? And in Queens, everybody's a minority, but I think especially it was tough being a white boy growing up in Queens sometimes, so I'll put it that way. But I never really felt a little sensitive subject matter, but I never really felt what they refer to as white guilt, because everybody's a minority. There's a little slice of everybody in Queens. It's the most ethnically diversified place on the planet statistically. So I never felt it. But
I mean,
man,
I know Chinese guys from Queens. I know
yeah, and they're like, "Yo, what up?" You know,
Jews
like
from
they don't
Queens, Africans from Queens,
everybody.
Greeks from Queens,
So
Italians from Queens.
right, but you've got helium drillers that are in Arizona. You've got semiconductor manufacturing facilities being built in Arizona, and all that stuff is now coming to Arizona, and they're bringing in and in Texas and in Austin too. You know, a lot of tech going over to Austin. So I'm thinking about where to buy real
But
estate
why'd
right
you say
now.
entertainment? There's a lot of entertainment people going to Texas too.
Everybody is going to Austin, and especially comedians. So LA, you know, is a police state. LA is China. You know, China, there's a lot of Asians that come to Cali because that's the closest, you know, proximity in the country. And they get to Cali and they're like, wow, freedom. And we're like, no, 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 that's the most locked down state that it is. And but in Cali, you know, LA, the entertainment industry, they just got completely locked down. The restaurants went out of business, and it's a shit show. And they
Got it.
decriminalized crime. There's shit on the street. You know, downtown's a war zone. It's just worse and worse, almost by design. There's a lot of, you know, question about what they're doing on
A
purpose
lot of
versus.
people in San Francisco moved down to Texas too, right? I heard.
So everybody moved to Texas, yeah, and Dallas, Houston, but anything entertainment. And what's really cool, Austin has always been kind of a music town, you know, and rock and roll and things like that. And then it just started kind of flooding there, as I understand it. I spoke to some of the locals there too, and then they stopped paying, or either paid very low dollar amount. So those people kind of started filtering out. And then when everything with COVID happened, everybody kind of fled from Cali to Texas, and from New York to Florida, or across to whatever, to the out of the police states into the freedom states. And so Austin now, I go there like every month, every other month, you know,
Are you there
because of
that
the
often?
comedy. So
That's
yeah. So
cool.
but because of that, because of the entertainment, because of semiconductors, there's Arizona's great. I love, even, you know, just going to Sedona for a couple weeks. And there's other places too up there. What are they called? There's free something, free, whatever, free, there's something. There's a few places around Sedona that's beautiful also. Um, so either Arizona or Texas. And those, I think those are going to be Arizona. If you think about it, the 30-year project from Taiwan Semiconductor, there's other 30-year projects happening, and the government's putting tons of money. The
And
strongest
Arizona is one of
subsector
those. Arizona
strongest
is one of
subsector
those.
is semiconductors. In the stock market, breaking into 41 groups, semiconductors has been the strongest for like 2 years straight. And so you move to where the government's putting their money in the industry, you know, and the drilling. And there's also an argument that people are making now for driller, like energy, oil producers or whatever, getting into cryptocurrency. I forget what one has to do with the other, but it's now kind of, crypto's kind of spilling over into energy, the energy sector now. Just as similar to how chips are gonna blow up helium in a little bit more, you know, and things like that. So anyway, yeah, I was thinking about those places to move to. I mean, I don't think things are going to be reversed. I don't think people are going to suddenly want less freedom. So, you know, unless these
Yeah, I
guys
mean, I don't
change
know.
it.
I mean, I can't speak for California or Arizona. You know, I've been to Austin a few times in the last few years. You know, I can speak to New York. I don't know if New York is back per se, but I will tell you that I'm there a couple times a month. You know, it's maybe a couple times a month for work, I should say, because I've been going in with my wife quite a bit for dinners and basketball games. I feel like we've been in there a lot lately. But you know, there's deals that are happening. That I could tell you for sure. There are deals that are happening. Um, People are moving and shaking, making things happen. It's
To make New
cool.
York great again.
I mean, I freaking love New York. I love New York City so much.
I do
It is such,
too.
it is, I've searched far and wide for other cities, and there are great other cities. We talked about Singapore. Mumbai is an amazing city. Hong Kong is freaking ridiculous. It is so awesome. Tokyo is on another planet, literally. Um, they're not New York. You know, they're not New York. Hong Kong is probably the closest I could maybe think of. Um, that's probably I could live in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd want to live in the other places though.
The way I think about New York, I feel like it's a spouse that I loved my whole life, you know, and just but beats on me and treats me like, you know, just it got addicted to drugs. It's not bathing, it's sleeping on the couch, it's always coming up with excuses.
You're hanging
I
out in the
just
wrong neighborhoods,
but I
man.
love,
Go,
but I love dearly my spouse, you know. I love New York. I go there, I have a great time. Forget it. You have a great time guaranteed every night in New York.
you're
And
gonna eat well. You're gonna eat
you can
very
eat
well.
well. It's if you have your papers. Do you have your papers? No, they did that for a very long time. You couldn't go in. I don't know if there's, I don't think they're still doing it, but you go in, there are your papers. Like you had to
Like
have your
what? The
COVID.
vaccine?
Are they still doing that? No. All right. So they finally admitted. I mean, they finally decided not to. Okay. So I that to me was such a letdown and such like a I felt like it was a sign
I've been
of
going in the city a ton. I've been eating very well. Concerts are packed.
what do you have a contract with New York City or something? Why are you talking so nicely?
I freaking love New York, bro. You know, I love Hong Kong too, and I'm hearing not so great things from Hong Kong, by the way. And
Really?
I haven't been in a few years, but yeah, there's some shit. But you know, with mainland, I mean, it's not easy what's happening over there. Um, I can speak to New York though, and New York is vibing hard.
I feel like even people from places like New York and Cali are sort of adopting kind of that southern thing. Like, you know, you're from Miami. You know what they say, the further north you go, the further south you get, right? I mean, it's a blue state, it's a New York City, people come down and
Hmm.
do it. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach. And then you have real Florida. And that's actually spilling into Naples, Fort Myers, Bonita Springs, and mostly the people from Middle America. So they go down to 75 from Michigan and they stop there on that side of Florida, and it's a whole other, you know, a whole other thing. But I feel like there's still some sort of a southern aspect to it, and especially in Texas, even if you're in Austin, which is, you know, all the people from LA. But I feel like people are kind of opening up more to the Southern thing. I think, you know, Southern used to have this, of course, people think North, South, Civil War, you know, they think a little more intellectual, a little more, you know, they think Boston, Massachusetts, MIT, they think of, you know, Northern California, Berkeley, all, you know, they think about that. There's great universities down here too, but there's just this kind of couple 100-year-old thing, North, South. Or if you do the, you know, if you want to do an impersonation of stereotypical cliche dumb guy, and you know, they'll put on like an accent or something like that. But I feel like that is actually changing now. I feel like that's reversing now. If you look at the things that are getting more hits, likes, views, shares, all that, you look at the internet, you look at the YouTube channels that are blowing up, and it's a lot of these Southern people that have this that have their own channels, their own shows, and you're seeing that it just seems to me that popularity in that is spiking. I think it's almost inevitable because of the moving. And you know, people talk about, and we won't get into politics and stuff, but people talk about, you know, whether the election was real or not, or they talk about what people truly think versus what the media is trying to project, you know, and everybody get on board with whatever's popular. You know, if you look at the people who picked up their lives, left their family, left their lifelong friends, left everybody, went through moving. If I move from where I am right now up the street, it is a major pain in the ass, man. A major pain. I've got boxes I still have open from the last move, but these people moved their whole life to a new place, you know, Florida and Texas, and out of these two other places, which really is, you know, a cast of more than just a vote of what how they want to really live. And so when I see that, and then when you think about what you want to project to people, because we're in marketing, we have businesses, we're selling stuff, there's promotions or whatever. It's important to know what people are kind of more adapting to. And I feel like even people who live in New York are kind of opening their mind more to Southern stuff, Texas stuff, you know, just things that are New Orleans, you know, just things that are Southern, you know, Arizona. I feel like people are a little more interested in that culture.
Accepting.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like, you know, you grew up in New York. I am an outsider, or
But
was an outsider.
we called the South. We were friends with
No,
everybody.
but what I'm saying is people that come to Manhattan from almost everywhere in the world,
Overwhelmed.
you by no, it's not that you're overwhelmed. You by definition have to be open-minded to
Right,
other
because you have
cultures. So
everybody.
you have everybody, everything, like literally every country is represented. There's somebody from everywhere. I mean, versus somebody who grew up there. It's a different perspective, I think, that I have than you.
Yeah,
Because
you
everybody I
definitely.
know from New York, I mean, yes, I know people that are from New York. Obviously, I know a lot of people, but I know a lot of people that are not.
Yeah, I find that you know, because I'm in Miami almost every other day. And also remember, I do stand-up comedy. So what you're doing then is you're getting hundreds of people together and you're taking their temperature, seeing what they laugh at, seeing what they're grown at. You know, you know that group as an aggregate. Yeah, and it's vital that you get to know them real fast and be very perceptive to what they are into. And I've always been a pretty good gauge of people. So, you know, it must be interesting because I know a lot of Cubans, especially Miami Cubans who left Cuba, got out or whatever, it was started families, started lives, are a little bit more on the, I hate to use terminology that they want you to use to label to make a group, you know, just a set of rules, but a little bit more on the conservative side, a little bit more, you know,
Cubans,
not wanting the government involved in your shit. So
for obvious reasons. It
right. So
depends on
Cubans, right. So
it
Cubans,
depends on the generation, though.
right. So right. And everybody thinks their parents are stupid. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it flips over a few times, but you have Cubans in Miami. Miami is actually a little bit of a blue area within a red area. It's just funny to me, you know, to think about that. You know, you have
As a lot of the metropolitan areas tend to be, though.
right. Yeah. I mean, because they have influence from all these other places
Yeah, but a lot of the Cubans, you know, a lot of the Cubans, particularly the early arrivals in the early 60s, which was the generation my family came in, you know, they were just so traumatized from, you know, you literally had to start from scratch. And think about it, the 1950s was such an incredible time for the economy. The Cuban economy was better than the American. I mean, things were great down there. And then when shit hit the fan and they had to get out, they literally had to start from scratch in a new country, not knowing the language, and, you know, work your way up from there. So that was, you know, that was tough. So when you have that kind of traumatizing event, you know, it's hard to have any sort of trust whatsoever from the government. You want as hands off as humanly possible. So that's why that generation, can't really blame them. You know, that's really what they were thinking. And then as generations go on, you know, that didn't have that struggle, that didn't have that, you know, all the sacrifices they made, you know, me and my kids don't have to make those sacrifices, you know, so it's just different not living through it. And then I have to make sure my kids understand that, because I got all the stories from my grandparents and my great grandmother. I mean, I was, you know, drilled in my head with everything that happened. So, I mean, I could pass those stories on. And when my kids are old enough to understand, I'm going to make sure that they, you know, that they get it.
Yeah. I think our kids are going to have such a different perspective, man.
Of course.
I don't know. I mean, they're coming into this world as we know it now. Okay. So in one way, it's an advantage. In another way, it's a disadvantage. because we saw, just like we saw the transition from not tech to everything tech, right? And we saw pre 9/11, post 9/11, and things like that. Now pre-COVID, post-COVID, but what they see is they don't have any contrast, you know. So they like Google, you know, Google began. I mean, Google like dominates the world now. They began. They were a DARPA grant. It was like funding as part of a joint CIA NSA thing, and they wanted to. There's something called birds of a feather or something, or birds of a feather flock together. Like that was the program, and to put that online and to learn about people and how they flock together from the CIA and the NSA through search requests, search aggregation. So then they launched Google as we know it. Keep on, excuse me. They launched Google as we know it about a year later. And then Google was a military contractor. Google bought the technology for Google Maps from the CIA. Google has all their own wholly owned fiber optic cables going under the ocean because they don't want anybody looking at their stuff. Google is basically the government. And, you know, I worry about our kids as they come up because kids are ignorant anyway. They don't really care about government or politics, but they're just going to be walking into a world where it's like, there's this force that when we grew up, there's the government seemed to be the top, in my view anyway. I always thought the government was the top of the, you know, and they will punish companies who don't do well. But really, it's just the companies just use the government to operate. And I don't know if I don't know what to think of it, man. I mean, you know, when you have big tech, which is really our true, you know, deciders of what's going to happen, and our kids don't know any better, you know, and then it becomes like modern day slavery. You know, it's slavery of the mind, slavery of the finances.
Yeah, but I don't want to go down this rabbit hole of the blockchain, but that I don't want to say the blockchain solves this, but that's really what it is. It's the, you know, you have these corporate networks that control all of these things, but with every day that goes by, you know, there are, you know, decentralized networks that are being built and applications being built upon that eliminate the disadvantages of such a dominant corporate network like a Google,
Right.
you know, and that's when you think about the future, all of this is solving for all of the things that you talked about. And again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert or whatever, but from you know, certain investments that I've made and certain hedge funds that I'm an investor to, I get to talk because, you know, it's, you know, I'm an investor in certain things, and maybe it might not be the greatest investment of all time that I can make. Maybe I can YOLO some Tesla calls, and that might have been a better investment. But the amount of information that I get by being an LP in a fund, you know what I'm saying? And having conversations with the portfolio managers and other LPs in that fund, you know, understanding the perspective from much bigger, much more experienced investors than me. You know, I love being the piker in the deal. That's always the best situation. I'm the smallest fish here. Like, I'm going to a bougie dinner next week. These dudes, and everybody brings a different bottle of wine. So they're like, all right, we're doing Piemonte and we're doing Tuscany, and it's a super bougie dinner. And then I see the bottles that are already being brought. It's like 1968 Barolo, you know. I'm like, I don't got any of that. Like, what do I got? And now I got to think I got to bring something at least 20 years old so I don't look like a schmuck. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
Or, you know, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't have
So I don't
Italian wine from the 60s in my cellar. Like, I just don't got it. You know, I'm just not there. I can't wait for the dinner because it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to drink all this juice. But this is a real, granted, it's a first world problem, but this is a problem nonetheless. I got to get myself some aged Tuscan or Piemonte. So it can't just be, it's got to be specifically from two different regions. So that's my first world problem of the day. But my point is that I like being the piker in the deal. I like being the small fish in the deal. So I get to learn from the others, you know? I'm okay with that. I'll be the dumbest guy in the room. I'll be the poorest guy in the room. I'm good.
Yeah, man. I don't know how you do it, man, because I mean, as an entrepreneur, you know, I'm a money manager, and I am essentially running two companies. You know, I know what you're saying for sure. It's all about hiring the right people. So I'm always trying to get better at that skill. if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, you don't necessarily have to try to make a $1 billion company like I am. I'm trying to, take the company public and everything, but
There's nothing wrong with a business that just, that's making
lifestyle,
40 million dollars, 30-40%
I say
margins.
three.
What's wrong with that?
Three. If you have a profit margin of 30% and you're netting 3 million bucks, that's amazing, and you can keep it simple.
Doesn't
And
have to be a unicorn. There's good businesses out there, for sure. And I like businesses with good risk reward. Like you talk about the wine business, like worst case scenario, we can't
you got a
get
lot
rid
of
of the
wine on the
wine. Now
shelf.
you got a lot of wine. I can think of worse problems to have, I
And you can
suppose.
always drink them away and make it seem like it's not a big deal.
Right.
The
You know,
problems aren't that bad when
yeah. So,
you got good wine.
yeah, right. Exactly. So listen, I like hiring people to do the things that I don't want to do,
Right.
or the things that I'm just not good at, which is generally the things I don't want to do. Like if I
Yeah,
want to do
things you're not
something,
good
I'll
at.
probably, yeah, I don't want to be good at it. You're good at it. You do it.
Yeah.
And there's some things
Outsource
that I'm
it.
just never going to be good at. And I know that. Like, it's not even that I don't want to. It's I just, like video guys and designers and stuff like that. Like these guys are fantastic. I'm never going to be as good as these guys. Why would I even try? You do it.
Mm.
Tell me what light to buy and what microphone to use and send me what comes out, I could talk about markets. What do you got? What do you want to talk about? So that's how I look at it. Hire the right people, especially the things that you don't want to do. And there's a reason, there's a reason why you do things. And a lot of times when I was younger, it's like, why am I working so hard? Why am I doing it? Well,
Right.
when you have a family and stuff like that, and now you got real responsibilities, you'll be
Not as
happy at the
easy.
sacrifices you made. Money
Yeah.
doesn't, money doesn't buy happiness, but
Right.
sure as shit makes things a lot easier. A lot of things
Yeah.
that could be harder, it
Yeah.
helps, which is
It's
why
it's
you want to
it's
invest
pretty hard to
wisely.
be, if you could find happiness without money, that's really a blessing. Me, yeah, I think about, I'm in a wheelchair. I think about, I've got kids and what, the things that they're gonna have to do. They're gonna be just you got to be at a position where at least you could take a break for 2 years and think about who you are as a person and why am I doing this? What do I really want to do? But most people are on that wheel, that hamster wheel, where if they stop running, they're just going to be tossed in a million directions.
I was talking to somebody about that at lunch. He's a psychologist, and he talks to a lot of like, you know, business owners and high net worth people. And he's like, dude, these guys just don't stop. Like it's never enough. They're killing themselves. They never see their
yeah, mostly
families.
out of
Like he's,
fear.
it's a disaster. So I think that Morgan Housel is great, author, a friend of ours, wrote The Psychology of Money, and then he just wrote a new book, like Things That Never Change or Things That Don't
I
Change.
listened to Josh's podcast with him on it. So the
Great.
podcast is called The Compound for anybody listening. I
Yeah.
listened to that. I thought it was so cool that I got that book and I listened to that book. Do you read the book with the skier, his friend and everything, and the
Both of
avalanche?
them. Yup, yup,
Yeah,
yup.
I agree. So
Um,
what's his name again? Say it again.
his name is Morgan Housel. And one of the things that he says a lot of things about money. It's the name of the book, Psychology of Money. But one of the things that he says is, the money, what it ends up doing is that it enhances the behavior. So, if you're already happy before you have money, you're going to be happier. Life is going to be easier. Nothing's really going to change. If you were an asshole before you had money, now you're going to have money. Now you're going to be an even bigger asshole. Like it just kind of like, it exposes, it
Mhm.
helps expose who a person truly
Right.
truly
Yeah.
is. I thought that was really interesting.
It exposes people's disloyalties even faster.
Oh
You
yeah.
put some money in a relationship and you find out real quick how loyal people actually are. I saw on a video clip, like a reel, I was scrolling through Instagram or something, and I saw Larry David talking to some reporter. And it was probably soon after Seinfeld was not only successful, but incredibly successful, $1 million an episode type thing. And so they asked Larry David, it's like, now you got money. You came from a place where you had no money. You were just a comedian in these little dingy little, you know, 30-person comedy clubs. And now you got everything. You have as much money as you can ask for and a big name. It's like, so, no more problems, right? And he's like, no, he's like, it's not like that at all. He said, now it's like, I thought it would be like that because that's the one thing I didn't have. So it's the one thing I always obsessed over, which is like most people. But he said, once I had it, he's like, I had just as much anxiety, but it just shifted to other things. Like, and now I had time to stop thinking about money. Now I'm thinking about this person's health and the path of this. And he said, it's the same amount of anxiety, no change in the level, just where you direct it to. Pretty much it.
Interesting. Yeah.
For
No, it's
me, it's
interesting.
like, you know what's funny? You were making this comparison earlier, which we were talking about, you know, stockbrokers or money managers that build these books and blow them up and build them and blow them. And as a kid, you think you could do that, and then you get older, and it's like you get a little more tired, a little bit more frustrated, you have more resentment from things in life, and you know, and I, you know, I don't do that with my money management business. I've got a whole bunch of models and they're all diversified, and I'm betting on something that's always worked ever and never not worked. So it's thank God. But now I am also kind of, it's like being a stockbroker building a position in just one stock, because I have my company, right? So when it has big swings up, I'm happy, fine, whatever. And I'm old enough, when I have the big swings up, I don't get excited anymore. I don't have that new money stupidity, you know? Actually, when things are great, that's when I'm the most uncomfortable and the most worried and the most, I'm like, where is the mallet coming from? You know, what direction?
Here's the thing. Once you get out of it, now you don't have to be all in, and you have a diversified set of strategies, right? And it brings down the volatility of, you know, at one point, you know, all my net worth, I mean, I technically even debt. I had taken out debt to grow my company. So I was in the negative for a while, building my company up, just trying to do the right thing. And I knew what was happening behind the scenes, but you couldn't really see it on paper. And you're very exposed because that's all I had. And then, you know, once you can diversify, like I'm running a business. I run 3 businesses technically, you know, but then I've got the portfolio over here, and I've got the venture capital over here, and the real estate over there. So like right now I'm getting crushed in these put options that I own in the market, but then I got a 7-figure account over here that's long the market. So like that account is doing great. These puts might've blown up, but I'm doing well over there. You know, I got other things that are happening, which, you know, if my whole pie was in these puts that I'm getting killed on right now, if that was my whole net worth, I'd be crushed. But I lost a couple of bucks. I'll live, you know?
Yeah.
I'm probably net positive on the day, actually, all things considered.
Cool. So JC, thanks a lot, man. Listen, want to tell the world what you got? I say the world. This is going to be one of the first shows on the Rowe Show. So there'll be like 8 listeners, but we'll try to get a lot more. But where can people find you?
Well, you can find me at allstarcharts.com. Follow me on Twitter at allstarcharts. I've been doing a lot of work with Stock Market TV, doing a morning show at 8:30 a.m., stockmarkettv.com. Check us out, 8:30 to 10 every day. We always have cool guests on. We're talking about, it's a technical analysis, a lot of CMTs, portfolio managers, things like that. So check it all out there. And I'm easy to find. I'm around. Shoot me a DM. DM's open. You know, slip into my DMs. All good. No big deal.
Slide up in those DMs.
That's it. That's it, baby. That's how deals get done.
Yeah.
You don't ask. It's a no, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Thanks for watching The Rowe Show. If you like what you saw today, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to leave a comment. Maybe leave a question. Maybe we might answer it. Share this with your friends. And most importantly, make sure that you're subscribed. Also, you can get more stuff like this at truemarketinsiders.io. I'll see you on the next show.